This is Sean Kinney with RCR Wireless News. We're here at LTE North America in Dallas, Texas. I'm joined by Matt Goldberg. Matt's a Senior Director for SevOne. And Matt, today I'd like to talk a little bit about your cluster architecture service. Can you just give us an idea of how it works and what it provides?
Yeah, sure. Our cluster architecture really is about distributing the computing load out across the infrastructure. So if you look at how carriers are deploying their infrastructures today, they're geographically spreading things out across different data centers around the world or around a particular country. With this distributed architecture, what we've allowed customers to do is put our appliances in these data centers and then peer them together. The great thing about that is the data always lives local to wherever it's being collected from. And what we end up doing is sharing the configuration information amongst the peers in the cluster technology. So you can log into a peer anywhere in the infrastructure and actually run a report from anywhere else all around the world. So it's really giving us the power to linear distribute and scale as customers grow.
And you stick with the data packet, right? A little different from other architecture.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, once the data comes into SevOne, I mean, we are storing it locally and we're processing that data and applying our analytics to that data as it's coming into the system in real time.
Okay, and a big part of this is using Wi-Fi and complementary networks to offload some of the traffic as you're given preference to different bits of data.
Yes.
What makes cluster perform better?
Yeah, I think from the cluster perspective and performing better, it's really about, if you think about some of the new technologies like Hadoop and stuff, they're using MapReduce. And if you look at kind of how we've built our technology over the years, we've really leveraged that, starting back in the mid-2000s. We don't use Hadoop today, but we're using that methodology. And I think that's what served us well in these very large installs, around the world where we are today.
Okay, and as the technology kind of changes, you mentioned Hadoop, and before we started the segment, we were talking a little bit about VoLTE. How is the product going to change to accommodate that?
Yeah, we've got a great side component to the product called XStats, which allows us to acquire data from non-standard sources. So typically if you look at network performance management, a lot of it's done through SNMP polling in the infrastructure. XStats really allows us to go out and pull data in from non-standard things. So if you go into a large environment in a carrier, you'll see, in some cases, 40, 50 different vendors providing, parts of an IMS service or parts of a VoLTE service. So they don't all buy from one vendor. So what we've been able to do is actually integrate into each one of these vendors for the carriers, pull that data in and do a consolidation. So when they are looking at it from a NOC and an operations and a capacity planning perspective, they're getting that single dashboard that says, okay, this part of the component's made by vendor A, this one's made by vendor B, but we're streaming it all together and putting it into a single pane of glass for them. So, to the VoLTE piece, it's new data for us to go and acquire. We've worked very closely with a lot of the hardware manufacturers so that as they're doing releases and as they're rolling things out in some of these big carriers, we're in lockstep with them.